Good afternoon, everyone. As you all know, we have gathered here for the webinar on understanding the flexibility and multidisciplinary higher education through the Academic Bank of Credit, organized by the Council of Principals of Colleges in Kerala. We will begin with a welcome address. I invite Dr. A. Biju, President of the Principals Council, for the welcome address.
Most respected Chief Guest of the function, Dr. Shakila Shamsu, our beloved General Secretary, Dr. U. Saidalavi, Treasurer, Dr. Lisi, former leaders of Principals Council, retired principals, fellow principals, IQAC coordinators, and faculty members of various institutions. Good evening, all of you. Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched the Academic Bank of Credit as part of the 1 year of National Educational Policy 2020. The Academic Bank of Credit has been set up by the University Grants Commission, in which students will be given multiple entries and exit options. It gives academic flexibility, allows students to choose own learning path, allows students to study at their own pace, recognize the learning achievements, transparency, etc. The UGC's official statement says that the flexibility in academic programs will enable students to seek employment after any level of award and join back as and when feasible to upgrade qualification, and also curtail dropout rate and improve gross enrollment ratio in higher education. ABC is an online centralized system and will provide learners to open unique or individual academic bank accounts in digital form, after which they will be given a unique ID and access to the standard operating procedure. ABC will give credit accumulation and redemption, credit audit trial management, credit accounting, etc. The ABC regulations will encourage a blended learning mode in which students will be allowed to earn credits from various higher educational institutions recognized under this scheme and through SWAYAM platform. Under this scheme, students can secure up to 50% credits from outside their college or university. The last executive meeting of the Kerala Principals Council decided to organize a talk on newly implementing Academic Bank of Credit for the principals and IQAC coordinators of colleges in Kerala. Today we have with us Dr. Shakila Shamsu, the art resource person, to give a clear idea on ABC and its implications. She was formerly officer on special duty of new educational policy in the Department of Higher Education, MHRD, and also the nodal officer of the flagship scheme of National Mission on Teachers and Teaching, NMTT. She has been the secretary to the committee to draft national education policy. Prior to this, she held senior positions like officer on special duty 12th plan and joint advisor education planning commission. Her core areas cover education planning and policy making, teacher education, ICT enabled learning, open and distance learning, and inclusive education. Her academic career spans over 39 years, 9 years as a lecturer in the University of Mumbai, 16 years in IGNU, and over 14 years in the Government of India. She holds a PhD in education, gold medalist from University of Mumbai for her master's degree, PG diploma in distance education, and a degree in law. She has to her credit a number of articles in international journals and book contribution. She has been a member of several committees for the preparation of plan documents and reports on various aspects of education. She has delivered keynote address at several national and international conferences. Today, she will explain the understanding flexibility and multidisciplinary higher education through Academic Bank of Credit. She will give a clear picture on how the ABC will affect the affiliated colleges, autonomous colleges, etc. On behalf of the Principals Council of Kerala and the participants, I welcome you, ma'am, for this August function. I also welcome our General Secretary, Dr. U. Saidalavi, Treasurer, Dr. Lisi, former leaders and retired principals attending the meet. Hearty welcome to all fellow principals and faculty members of various institutions. Thank you all. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir. I invite Dr. Shakila Shamsu ma'am, former officer on Special Duty New Education Policy, to handle the webinar. Ma'am, please.
Good afternoon and thank you to Dr. Biju and greetings to Dr. Saidalvi and Treasurer of the Council of Principals of Colleges in Kerala, former heads of this organization, and all those who are gathered here today to understand the Academic Bank of Credit, which has been a part of one of the major recommendations of the National Education Policy 2020. I normally speak extempore because I explain the National Education Policy recommendations, and now it is well into the implementation and some new recommendations actually getting translated through instruments like the Academic Bank of Credit. And for the benefit of all, I thought rather than me making an extempore talk on ABC, I thought sharing a presentation might be a better way to go about it. So with your permission, I think I'll share the presentation. So I think what we are trying to do in today's discussion is to give you an overview of how to understand the idea of multidisciplinary education, and within that, the flexibility that has been brought in through the Academic Bank of Credit. And I thought it would be very pertinent for us first to understand the reason why the National Education Policy ever thought in terms of bringing about such a flexible multidisciplinary approach to learning in the 21st century. And this particular slide, I'm just trying to set that context of a UNESCO report which was brought out in 1996, which is titled as Learning the Treasure Within. And the title is very, very significant because learning is a kind of a treasure that is embedded within each one of us. And in order to bring that treasure out from within each one of us, we need to look at learning through 4 pillars, which is learning to know, the cognitive part of it, learning to do, which is the experiential or the practicum part of it, or the skills part of it, learning to live together and to live with others, and finally, learning to be, which is the actualization of one's own potential or one's own talents. Now, all this is critical to education as we understand in the 21st century, and that is precisely the reason why, based on this UNESCO report, the committee felt that we need to weave within the recommendations of the NEP a lot which is related to flexibility in terms of curricular choices, in terms of pedagogical tools, in terms of assessment, and in terms of student mobility and institutional mobility which students should be given so that they can actually bring the treasure which is there within each one of them to be manifested in their real life and for their own value additions. This is again set within another goal that we are committed to, and that is the SDG Goal 4, which, as most of you would be aware, is to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. So combined with the multidimensionality of learning as an activity and the fact that we are as a nation committed to ensuring that we will provide equitable education and which is of high quality to all persons, so that you are actually creating a sustainable society. And you're all aware that the SDG goals, which are about 17 in number, with a focus on people, planet, and prosperity, which talks about ending hunger, removal of poverty, having an environment which is protected, good urban planning, all aspects which touch various other aspects of life. The UNESCO has decided that SDG Goal 4 will be like the mother goal on the basis of which the other SDG goals can be realized. I'm just giving you a quote from a lecture that our chairman, Dr. K. Kasturirangan, has recently addressed in the National Institute of Education Planning and Administration, NEPA, as you all know, during their 15th Foundation Day lecture just less than a month ago, on title Liberal Education, a 21st Century Imperative. It's an imperative. It's almost mandatory that we move towards a 21st century learning, and that 21st century learning has to have the key characteristics of a liberal education. And I have not taken the entire speech, but I've just taken out some relevant part which is there for you to read, but I'll just read it again for the benefit of all of you. The key characteristics of a liberal education is the recognition of the holistic and fundamentally interconnected nature of human knowledge and inquiry. I emphasize you in that particular paragraph the importance of recognizing the holistic and fundamentally interconnected nature of human knowledge. It goes on, for the vast majority of people, however, education has an overtly utilitarian nature and has been limited to specific silos. So the overtly utilitarian nature is what we think education is only the sole purpose of acquiring education is for employment. That's the utilitarian view of education. And we need to move away from that in the 21st century through the idea of liberal education, which is what we are saying, that the utilitarian view, when you say is only employment, you are focusing on silo-based education. And that is why such a system of education has produced job-ready graduates, and for the jobs of the day-to-day. That is where exactly we are trying to make a shift. Whereas a liberal arts education is a very distinctive one. It is an engagement with one or more fundamental disciplines in a combination with a broad exposure to multidisciplinary ways of thinking. So unlike what we said in the earlier paragraph, here we are clearly trying to say that it is an engagement with multiple disciplines because of the fact what Professor Yashpal had mentioned about the porosity of knowledge, and therefore how one knowledge seeps into another knowledge, and they are all interconnected to add to the length and breadth of that particular discipline. And this is where we are talking in terms of the idea of the multiple disciplinary ways of thinking, or what we are commonly calling it today as holistic, integrated, multidisciplinary, flexible undergraduate education. Further on, if single-based education produces what is commonly referred to an I-shaped student, which is the silo-based, in-depth education in a given silo, a liberal arts education produces a T-shaped student. The I stands for the depth in one subject, whereas the T combines the depth with range. And today's employers are not interested in the I category of student. The employer today is looking for a T-shaped student where multiple competencies and multiple disciplinary knowledges are embedded within the student to help them in dealing with multiple complex issues, which is the nature of the world today, or the nature of the society and the economy. So we are finally saying that a liberal education is focusing on outcomes, which is not necessarily just the cognitive outcomes or the skill-based outcomes, but also the strong written and oral communication skills, teamwork, ethical decision-making, critical thinking, and an ability to apply that knowledge into real-life settings. Now, this particular slide, I thought, would help you understand in a certain way, or rather appreciate. I don't have to say help you understand. You all are eminent educationists in your own field and educators who are understanding that if any system of education is fossilized into a period of time where the rest of the society or the economy has undergone changes, then you will find that even the utilitarian view of education might become irrelevant. And therefore, I am trying to make us all appreciate it is not that the committee wanted to bring about a liberal arts education for a fancy, but it is an imperative in today's world. As I always say when I talk about the national education policy, that it is a response to the changes that are happening in the world today, which is so globally connected, which is seeing the advent of information and communication technologies and disruptive technologies like artificial intelligence and machine learning, which has resulted in the dynamism with which the obsolescence of knowledge is calling for a need for lifelong learning. And if you want to have lifelong learning, the current scenario that we have will not be able to facilitate that, because we will treat a student as being a failure or a dropout when you are actually forcing them in a structured undergraduate program. Now, this slide is just to give you a snapshot of what are the principles that are underlying the National Education Policy 2020. I'm sure all of you have gone through that 66-page document, and I would ask you all or urge you all to revisit that document in reading the chapter 1, where we have outlined, other than the 5 goals, 22 cardinal principles on the basis of which the recommendations of NEP 2020 have come forward. The policy has been received with bouquets and brickbats, as will any policy in this world be received. And while we are conscious of the brickbats that the national education policy has brought about, an understanding of the 22 cardinal principles, and the very first principle that I have displayed on the screen, to recognize, identify, and foster the unique capabilities of each student by sensitizing teachers as well as parents to promote each student's holistic development in both the academic and the non-academic. This is the critical first principle that has been the determining factor to what we have proposed as the flexibility. One slide on the school education, because you are aware that we are talking about in school education of a new curricular and pedagogical structure in a 5+3+3+4 pattern. And if you see the depiction on the left side, that is left side that I am showing for you, possibly the right side, we are trying to say that the older academic structure or the previous structure, where we are concentrating between the ages of 6 and 16 and then 16 to 18, the lowest part, which is actually with the horizontal lines, are the ones where the ECCE was totally absent. And therefore, we were saying that we are allowing a child at the age 6 into class 1, where you are already creating a learning divide from within the younger age group for someone who has come in with a kind of a learner preparedness through a strong ECCE program vis-a-vis a student who does not come in through an ECCE program. So you are creating a learning divide that is there, and that is why the new architecture or the rationale that has come about with this new architecture that we are talking about, which is the foundational stage, the preparatory stage, the middle stage, and the secondary stage. And this has also come into the higher education system in terms of the flexibility, and the undergraduate, master's, and the PhD program completely stands turned in terms of the way we would like to go about offering it to them. The bachelor's degree, we are saying, could be of 3 or 4 years, and someone can have the multiple exit option after every year. And after every year that the person completes, the person is not treated as a dropout if they are leaving the course and rejoining, because you are allowing for a system of multiple entry and exit. And depending upon the nature of the bachelor's program, you are having option of the duration of the master's degree, being modified to be either 2 years or 1 year after a 4 years bachelor's. I'll focus on this slide a little bit longer because this is the crux which leads to the idea of an academic bank of credit. So currently, as principals of colleges from across Kerala, I'm sure you have all degrees which are specializing in either arts, science, commerce, engineering, medicine, pharmacy, agriculture, law, nursing, and so on, vocational, and so on. By saying that we will have a multidisciplinary education, we are allowing the students a flexibility in the choice of courses, where a student can take up any options and any combination of options. I'll come to the options part of it a little later. But the flexibility comes in the terms of the duration, because we are saying a bachelor's degree can either be of 3 or 4 years. And if it is 4 years, the person can have it with majors and minors, or it can be 2 majors. For want of space, it is not crammed up into this slide. And every year that the student leaves, the student is actually not treated as a dropout, but is given a certification. At the end of first year, a certificate. At the end of second year, a diploma. At the end of third year, it is a bachelor's, and the student is free to exit after the 3 years and decide that my bachelor's in multidisciplinary education will be only of 3 years. Should such a student after some time decide to come from the master's, that student will be forced to take a 2 years of master's program. Whereas a student who goes into the 4th year of the bachelor's and specializes in 2 majors, that student is having a bachelor's degree with 2 specialization. Such a student will do a 1 year of master's after the bachelor's degree, which is the second box that we are showing here. And we are also offering an integrated program where the bachelor's and the master's together could be completed within a 5-year period. So the 3 years and the 2 years taken together, or the 4 years and the 1 year taken together, can be a combination for an integrated bachelor's and master's, or the BSMS program. Now, third option that we are giving for the 4 years bachelor's degree is the student has taken a bachelor's with research, and that research is treated as an honors with research. Such a student can join directly for the PhD program. Now, in the last box under the bachelor's degree, we have written both 3 or 4 years program with research leads to a degree with honors. Please don't think that the 3-year bachelor's degree can go into the PhD program directly. That is treated as a bachelor's with honors, but that student will have to do a 2 years of master's to go on to do a PhD program. But suppose you've done a 4 years of bachelor's degree with research. Such a student skips out the entire master's degree and is eligible to join the PhD program. So you are actually allowing multiple durations of combination for the master's, for the undergraduate, master's, and PhD program, depending upon a student making a choice as to the number of years that the student is pursuing that program. This is what I had shown in my first slide, the 4 pillars, SDG goal, then went on to talk about the, the liberal education at 21st century imperative. And I had read this out to you, so I don't think I need to read it out again. And then I had gone to just show you a screen which had the principles underlying NEP 2020, and where I had urged all of you to revisit the chapter 1, and I had only spoken about the first principle, which is shown in the box here: recognize, identify, and foster the unique capabilities of each student to promote each student's holistic development. And then went on to show you a slide on the difference between the current schools in a school structure and the new academic structure of the 5+3+3+4, starting with a robust ECCE program to create a level playing field between all students who are coming into class 1 with adequate learner preparedness, and then how this flexibility has stretched on into the undergraduate program. So The undergraduate program with the three flaps of the bachelor's, master's, and PhD is actually trying to tell you the flexibility in the duration and therefore the entry into the master's and the PhD program. And I'll talk about the flexibility in the choices, but to dwell on this particular slide for a little longer time because of the glitch that you all had, as you can see that under the bachelor's, we are saying it could be 3 or 4 years. And in the 4 years, it could be a combination of major and minors. Every year you complete, you get a kind of a certification. And the 3 years or the 4 years, both can have honors. But as I said, the last box of 4-year bachelor's with research will go on to your last vertical of the PhD because they need not do the master's program. And if you had a 3 years of bachelor's, you would have a master's of 2 years. And someone who does a 4 years of bachelor's without research would have a 1 year of master's. And the other combination is an integrated bachelor's and master's of 5 years. And in the last vertical that I'm showing you on the PhD program, because we are allowing majors and minors at the bachelor's level, we will allow them to take up in any combination that they would like to go on for their masters, maybe even the minors going on. But as you go into the PhD, you can take up a combination of any of the courses that you have pursued at your bachelor's and master's to take up interdisciplinary research in doctoral programs. So currently, if I'm a political science master's holder, my PhD has to be confined to political science. Whereas when we allow this program, suppose I had learned political science, I have also learned economics, and I've also learned, let us say, a course in vocational education or agriculture, and a minimum number of credits I have acquired in this, then any of those, if I fulfill that minimum number of credits, I should be allowed to take up a doctoral program in any of those 4 areas where I have got the minimum number of credits at my bachelor's and master's taken together. Now, the flexibility in the choice of subjects is what this slide is trying to depict in a pictorial manner. You see, when we brought out the national education policy, I can also tell you where this comes from in terms of a pictorial representation or a pictorial presentation. It comes in from the idea that we wanted people, common people, to understand that, and that is why we are showing a doctor or an engineer, and here we are trying to show a sitar and a paint box and a book and music kind of thing. All of it contributes to multidisciplinary education. So that's what liberal arts education is all about. And that is exactly what we are saying, the I-shaped student vis-a-vis the T-shaped student. So the job, today's job or the employers of today are not looking at I-shaped students who are only having a single vertical specialization, whereas they're looking at a T-shaped student where both the length and the breadth in terms of integrated multidisciplinary education is focused in the student. And that is what this paragraph is, this box is trying to tell you, a broad-based liberal arts education at the undergraduate level for integrated and rigorous exposure to science, arts, humanities, and professional fields, imaginative and flexible curricular structures with creative combinations of disciplines of study. So you can take up mechanical engineering and learn painting, learn a sport, learn a vocational subject, or learn even a subject in agriculture or languages. So you are allowed from your first year onwards to take up any combination of courses. And this is possible because if we do not have that discipline available in the host institution, we are talking about HEI clusters where institutions come together to a collaborative arrangement. And let us say I join MES, some college in maybe Asmabi College or so, but I want to take up a discipline which MES Asmabi College does not have, but is being offered by some other college in the nearby vicinity, then I am free to take an admission into MES Asmabi, but do a course from another institution in a face-to-face manner. Or, as was read earlier, I can also do it through an open university. So today you have in Kerala an open university. You also have IGNOU at the national level. The student is free to do it even from there. and acquire the credits over there because it is not there in Asmabi College. So the flexibility in curricular choices of subjects is going to be totally unshackling what is currently seen in a very, very structured manner. And I'm sure as academics, we resist this. I say that as an academic myself, because I would feel that my subject of education or my subject of political science may be more important than maybe learning engineering or medicine. And so also an engineer. Whereas as an academician, we should be realizing that the requirement of the skills, ultimately, why are we here as teachers? We are here as teachers to ensure that our students complete a course of study which will hold them in good stead when they go out into the world of work or the world outside when they graduate and they go out. It is either the knowledge assimilation or the knowledge production that we are interested in, or their community engagement. If that is the role of a teacher and that is the purpose of it, then we cannot offer an education system which is irrelevant to the changing socio-economic needs. And that is why we must shed our academic egos to accept the importance of all disciplines, and that the co-disciplinary approach, which is intradisciplinary, interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary, or multidisciplinary, is all contributing to a very holistic, integrated, and flexible approach of undergraduate education. This slide also tries to tell you that the NEP has said that professional education, meaning your engineering and medicine and law and agriculture and so on, all of it is not separated from higher education, but is integral to the idea of multidisciplinary higher education. And that is why even these institutes, like the IITs, like the ISERs, like the medical institutions, like your national law universities, your agriculture universities, all of them will start moving towards offering multidisciplinary education. And since they may not have that departments within them, they will allow their students to take up those courses from other institutions or from open and distance learning or through the MOOCs platform. Of course, many are criticizing us as having said that why did we stick to only Swayam for the MOOCs? At least we stuck to Swayam as a MOOCs platform. If we wanted to say Coursera and edX, I think we would have invited the criticism. Already we are having a criticism of saying that we are actually marketizing education and internationalizing it without trying to understand what are India's needs. And if we had taken any of the foreign platforms, we would have invited a huge criticism, because we would have said we are ignoring Swayam, which is our own indigenous platform for the MOOCs programs, and taking on only the foreign ones, and therefore again in a certain sense commodifying education, or actually marketizing it only to serve the interest of the foreign providers. So we were quite possibly conservative in trying to say that we will stick to only the Swayam platform. Now, all this, three critical instruments, which is what we are here to discuss. And these critical instruments are the Academic Bank of Credit, which is notified rightly on 29th of July 2021, when the Honorable Prime Minister was inaugurating the 1 year of completion of NEP. The second one, the multiple entry and exit, which is also notified by the UGC. And in case you have not had a look at those guidelines, have a look at it. The third one, which is in the making, and that is the National Higher Education Qualifications Framework. While two have been notified, the multiple entry and exit in academic programs, where it also talks in terms of the alignment with the existing National Skills Qualification Framework to allow for the mobility across the courses. The Academic Bank of Credit also notified, which we will elaborate. NHEQF is being worked out. It should be there in the public domain, hopefully within a month's time, inviting comments. This is basically the larger framework which is trying to establish the equivalence of courses when students move from one institution to the other institution. Now, going further, the focus of our conversation today is to really look at the academic bank of credit. And I am trying to give you a rationale why the academic bank of credit was critical to the idea of NEP's integrated multidisciplinary education. So here in this box, in this slide, I'm only trying to tell you the 4 factors, dominant factors, rather they are about 6 factors. One is that we are accepting that principle of distributed and flexible teaching learning, that it is not a single mode learning, it is a combination of modes. It can be face-to-face, it can be purely online, or it can be through open and distance learning, and thereby making it a hybrid model, allowing a mobility across institutions and modes of learning. The very important factor why this is essential is the blue colored box, because we are giving autonomy to the students with extensive choice of course options across several higher education disciplines, because we believe that the integration of multiple disciplines leads to the desired learning outcomes of enhanced creativity, higher order thinking skills, innovation, critical analysis, cognitive thinking, and so on, including promoting a scientific temper as well as the 21st century skills of collaborative learning. The larger goal, because of the flexibility and because we are not condemning a student who is leaving a course in between as a dropout or a failure, we believe that having a flexible system of education at the undergraduate level, facilitated through the academic bank of credit, will reduce dropouts and consequentially will ensure in retention of students within the higher education system, enabling us to reach the quantitative target that the policy has laid of reaching 50% by 2035. Mind you, in the draft NEP 2019 report of the committee, we had actually said the GER of 50% by 2030. But when we talk about school education and higher education being linked, the universalization of secondary education, we have set it as 2030. If we say universalization of secondary education by 2030, then you need to give a transition time for about 5 years, and that is how the GER target of 50% we have said is by 2035. And because we are allowing a digital bank of credits, academic credits, we believe that the dropouts will be reduced. People will go and leave and come back within a 7-year period of time, allowing them to complete their graduation. Starting, let us assume that the academic bank of credit in most of the universities and colleges will not start this year, but in all probability may start next year, because NHEQF is not yet formulated. And personally, I would feel that things would start becoming clearer when we have a year's time, when onboarding of institutions and students also start taking place. So even if we assume that we are starting from 2022 academic year and giving the students a 7-year window to complete that program, not that solid 7-year program, I'll explain that to you, but leave and rejoin within a 7-year window, still by 2035, it's a long period of about 13 years. And therefore, we do believe that the GER of higher education will be improved because of this kind of a flexibility offered through an academic bank of credit. And as I said, because of the flexi structure of master's and PhD programs, we are in a situation where we should have a mechanism to digitally store the credits that are acquired by the student. So the academic bank of credit, the main features is that it is developed by the Ministry of Electronics. It has national academic applicability, because a student from University of Kerala should be able to join Bombay University, or should be able to join JNU or Jamia or any of the institutions, and that mobility, the credits earned by that student should hold that student in good stead when moving from one institution to the other. Now, this is possible because from the student's point of view, the student is going to have an academic bank account. From the institution, it is an onboarding of the eligible higher education institutions. We are digitally storing the academic credits because we are not looking at physical records, which is where the possibility of, maintaining this kind of a student database for eternity almost, because it's digitally stored in the cloud, is possible. While I use the word eternity, I'm not trying to say that this is going to be for eternity. It is a 7-year period that we are saying, and I'll explain that 7-year period, how flexible that 7-year period is. And we are awarding the degrees or the diplomas or the certificate. I'm sorry, I've repeated diploma. The degree or the diploma or the certificate, taking into account the credits that have been earned. And I'll explain what this feature means as we go, rather than focusing on it right now. The notification which is brought out is here for you. I mean, it was notified as a UGC regulation, and what is said over here in this very small print, because it's not being shown in a slideshow, I'll come to in a later slide. But these are tailor-made customized degrees that combines freedom and flexibility for us to get a kind of let us say a kind of justification. Such academic credit banks are already functional in many developed countries, including the Europe, Canada, UK, and South Korea. So we are not the first to do that. And these countries which are using these have really shown us that this is workable and possible, especially when technology has come into existence. This was the letter which the Secretary UGC has written to all the vice chancellors of the universities and the principals of the autonomous colleges. I'm not too sure how many of you over here are principals of autonomous colleges, but at the moment, as far as the eligibility goes, which I'll come in a slide or two from now, the universities who are meeting certain criteria, and only such autonomous colleges who meet certain criteria are eligible to make use of this facility of the academic bank of credit. So it means that an autonomous college can come into the picture to directly implement ABC, whereas an affiliated college will be allowed to use an academic, or can be onboarded to use the academic bank of credit, depending upon whether your university, your host university, whether it is the University of Calicut or Kerala or MG University or any other Abdul Kalam Technical University or any other university, agriculture university that is there. So colleges affiliated to host universities cannot automatically become a part of the ABC until their host institution, their parent institution, decides that they will adopt the academic bank of credit. But while I say that, the caveat is that once the UGC notifies that we will have a flexible 3/4-year undergraduate program, it cannot be confined to only some states and not to other states. So all universities default will be forced to come into using this facility for two reasons. One, as I said, it is a national applicability, and you cannot take a decision which is diametrically opposite to the interest of the students. Let us for a second hazard a guess that one of the universities in Kerala does not want to adopt it. That student cannot take the benefit of any of this flexibility of doing it from multiple institutions, taking up combination of courses, and therefore that student would be really disconnected from the entire academic system that is operating across the country. You will all recall when DU started, Delhi University started, the 4-year undergraduate program, the FIUP, which came in for a lot of flack. It was not just the procedural aspect that was a matter of criticism. The lack of preparedness among the faculty, no doubt about it. The irrational combination in which that program would have been offered, leading to an an overload of work without really having a rational purpose. But the main problem would have been that one university exclusively in this country offering it And a student coming from another university, as far as a fundamental right, I have a right of movement across the length and breadth of this country. And I can pursue my education in any part of this country. And someone who is coming in from another university would have found it difficult. So you cannot have, why it is not centralization, please understand. It is that there is a national character which is federal, but where all higher education institutions must be commonly having certain minimum core aspects which allows the student to have a mobility from one institution to the other. And that is the reason why I do believe that the universities in Kerala also will come across and come around to accepting that this is a reform which is in the interest of the students, because the world is moving towards flexible learning approaches. And therefore, we also should not deny our students this facility. This is the screenshot of how the site www.abc.gov.in looks like, which many of you may have already explored. And this is how the student would create an account, and which allows that student to store their digital records. This is the other screenshot, which says that the institution A, the student is admitted and the credits are getting deposited. Then the student wants to go to that last institution, that is institution B. Then that credits are transferred through the ABC, like a piggy bank, which is there to store your academic credits. And then when you come to that institution B, you're redeeming that credits just like you redeem your points that you earn when you do an online shopping. That's all that it does. So just as you have an e-commerce platform and you earn credits depending upon the purchases that you make, here is a academic credit bank where allows the students to accumulate the credits earned, having completed the minimum requirements of that course in terms of the internal assessment and the external examinations and so on. And then that course credits does not get forfeited, which is what happens today when I want to move from Bombay University to, say, Jadavpur University. I did my first year, I covered 4 or 5 courses there. But when I want to join in Jadavpur University, whatever I have earned in Bombay University stands forfeited. And the student starts from year 1 again, not giving the benefit of the duration as well as the benefit of the courses already completed. So irrational, because you will have mobility taking place. And that student should be allowed to carry forward those credits, because the knowledge acquired by that student is very much something that is integral or intrinsic to that learning already acquired. And that is precisely how the redemption of the credits operate. But I'll go ahead and explain it further. First, let us have a look at the eligibility criteria for the higher education institutions. Is there anything that I thought we'll take the interaction after we finish the presentation? Is that fine?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. After
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Yeah. So what was shown in that notification that I showed you as a screenshot of the UGC, this is the eligibility criteria, which says that the universities and autonomous colleges accredited by NAC with A grade, or if it's NBA, because NBA does program accreditation with at least 3 programs of a minimum score that is laid down. Second category, the top 100 NIRF ranked institutions, or by any other accrediting body that is there, or ranking body that is there. Right now in India, we have only NIRF, or alternatively, the world rankings by the QS or by the Times ranking. And while we have not written the Shanghai rankings, I think that has to be also accepted, because it's not just the QS and the Times ranking. Then the institutions of eminence and the institutions of national importance. So you can see in that first eligibility criteria, the point that I mentioned to you, that affiliated colleges cannot come in the onboarding of ABCs. So the university which is having the NAC accreditation, if your host university has that and they come on, then your college as an affiliated college can get the benefit of this new instrument of the academic bank of credit and the multiple entry and exit. But all our institutions actually fulfill that criteria one, whether they are technical institutions or whether they are regular universities. I would say a substantial number of them would come into that category. And therefore, a few who would remain out of it, and therefore the students not getting a benefit of it, is because that university itself does not meet a certain benchmark or a standard. So it becomes incumbent on a university to actually aspire and fulfill the NAC accreditation of a grade. Or if it is a technical institution, at least get the NBA grading. So here is a implied implication of the ABC. The ABC will force such institutions who are not meeting certain accreditation norms or who do not feature in the rankings to actually start becoming qualitatively better and acquiring all those standards which will enable the students joining their universities to ensure that that facility can be extended to the students. Now, this is a quality parameter where you will find that those institutions which are poor in their accreditation rankings, those which do not excel by certain benchmarks, will gradually perish in the higher education landscape. Now, I don't think any of us have a reason to complain on this inbuilt competitive factor which is coming into play over here, for the simple reason that a student coming out of such a college or a university which does not have minimum accrediting grades, that piece of paper that they call a graduate degree is unlikely to fetch that student any jobs, or is unlikely to give that student entrepreneurial skills to set up startups or open up their own, let us say, employment related activities. So there is an implication here that all higher education institutions, universities or colleges offering general education in today's nomenclature, or who are technical institutions by today's nomenclature, will aspire to acquire certain benchmarks to become A grades of NAC rating, or come within the top NIRF rankings, or ensure that they actually become capable of becoming a part of this new architecture of multiple entry and exit, and within the National Higher Education Qualification Framework, allow for using the Academic Bank of Credit facility for their students. And the clause 2 reads that the accreditation or the ranking must be valid at the time of the registration with the ABC. And that internally, if an institution wants to, even if it's an autonomous college or a university, they will have to take approval from the statutory authorities to apply for the registration with the Academic Bank of Credits, and registered HEIs will be required to admit students to individual courses in addition to their full-time degrees. So what do we mean by that? Once you are, this year the admission cycle is almost done. By the time you come to the admission cycle next year, you will have to offer not only your regular BA, BSc, BCom and so on, but you will say that you can join admission to a particular academic program, but you can take up courses which are not part of, let us say, the BA or the BCom or the BWalk or the BSc or the BTech. You can take up courses which are as individual courses from other programs, and therefore their program of admission will be with a combination of courses across various disciplines, which is essential to the idea of multidisciplinary education. We are also saying that the adequate infrastructure should be there, which is natural. And we are saying for transparency, we will have to put up all this information on the web page of the institution's website, saying that these are the facilities available, These are the HEIs who are offering the ABC facility, which are the standard operating protocols, and you will have a link that is separately shown for the academic bank of credit. The two other slides that follow are the critical ones on the implementation methodology. What would be required when, as an institution, you want to implement the ABC? You will have to amend the existing ordinances that are valid for you in relation to all these aspects of the ABC. What is the ability for ABC course registration? What would be the course requirements? What would be the acceptance of the multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary courses? How many credits? And this part, let me clarify. Currently, since the National Higher Education Qualification Framework is not notified, how many credits are required for a minimum of getting a diploma or a certificate or a bachelor's will become more clear once the NHEQF will come into being. So at the moment, an institution which wants to onboard will follow the current credit system, which will have to be modified once we allow the multidisciplinary choice of courses. We'll take that up at the time when we have the question answer session if we want clarification on this. But what we are saying is that we will encourage the students to customize their degrees by selecting the courses offered by one or more of the registered HEIs, which means that what I showed over here, this is the current number of institutions which, when I prepared this presentation, who were onboarded, the screenshot, and which is largely showing central universities and a few private universities who have come as institutions of eminence. So we can say that a student who is joining, let us say, DU, can take up courses which is offered by Chandigarh University or offered by JNU or offered by Jamia. This is the combination that can be allowed. So we are saying over here that we will encourage the students to take it up from other registered HEIs. We are also making it clear that 50% of the credits will have to be from a given institution. So I can't join MG University in Kerala, take up courses from, let us say, other universities of Kerala University or Calicut University, and take up in such a manner that, let us assume that the entire degree program is of 196 credits, that I can't take up in such a manner that 20 credits are taken up from about 6 or 8 institutions. That way you will make what we will call in Hindi a proper khichdi, that is a mix in such a manner that the student cannot really be given any degree or diploma or certificate. We are expecting a certain semblance of sanity by saying that at least minimum 50% of the credits would be from the host university to which the student has taken an admission. So that if I'm joining a college affiliated to the MG University and MG University has onboarded itself to ABC, then I should take up at least 50% of the credits from MG University, not necessarily from the same affiliated college, because the affiliated college is not giving a degree or a certificate. It is being given by the MG University. So I can do it from multiple affiliated colleges. That's not a problem, as long as it is from 50% of the credits are from MG University itself, provided that it is taken in a core area, so that though you are allowed to take physics with music or language or sport or vocational, you should take at least certain core minimum number of credits in the core subject, which we may be able to call as majoring in or minoring in. At the same time, the subclause 3 says that you cannot force a student to take up a course which is not related to, let us say, Bachelor of Arts, but is from, let us say, science or from engineering or from pharmacy. You cannot say that you will have to do that entire program of study. So it reads, students availing flexibility under ABC are entitled to subscribe only to courses of their choice and aptitude to accumulate credits and not to the entire program of study. So just because I take up, having taken up, let us say, a bachelor's with largely art subjects, and I take up one course of, let us say, physics or chemistry or biology or zoology of a science subject, I cannot claim that I have done zoology as my major subject because I've done only one course, and therefore that flexibility is only to take up a course outside your major domain, but you cannot claim that you have acquired the credits for that entire program of study. The next point is that it is a dynamic online directory of eligible HEIs, which is not your function, but the portal that is being managed by the Ministry of Education or the UGC. The HEIs will provide counseling and guidance, because students would be as confused as you and I are today to understand what the ABC is all about. To make them understand how is that redemption happening, how do you accumulate it, what is the definition of a credit. When you say you have acquired this many number of credits, what does it mean? It means that you've completed a course, all the minimum requirements, and once you acquire that minimum number of credits, it means the minimum time input required for the completion of that course. Today, you are calculating in the face-to-face situation the number of hours that is equivalent to a certain number of credits for a given course. So the assumption is, if I have done BSc, if I have done chemistry paper 1 of BSc first year, it means that I have completed all the requirements of the assignments and the internal exam and the external examination. There is an assumption that all the study input hours have been completed by me, even if we have not made maybe attendance as 100% compulsory. The assumption is that these things have to be explained to the student, because then only the student will understand what does it mean to say that I have earned the credits, and therefore that credit can be stored in my academic credit bank or my academic bank account and then be redeemed at a subsequent stage. Further, this is the part relating to the number of years. It cannot exceed 7 years. Now, what does this mean? Let us assume that nationally from next year, we will have the 3 or 4 year program being rolled out. I joined in my first year of bachelor's program, 2022-23 academic year. I leave at the end of first year in 2023. My 7-year period for completion will be determined from my year of exit, allowing me to rejoin anywhere within a period within that 7-year period. But suppose, so 2023, meaning that I should be joining at least by 2029-2030 academic year. Assume I didn't join and I'm coming back in 2030-31, I cannot get the benefit of academic credits, and I will have to re-enroll myself for the first year of the bachelor's. All that I have got in my hand is the first year certificate, which I get at the end of the completion of the first year. So the 7-year depends upon the student exiting a course. That is the maximum period. So here also, why we want an academic bank of credit, all students will have that exit flexibility and will have different 7 years computed from the period of their year of exit. That is why if you had physical storage of records, it would have been almost impossible. It would be chaos. It would have been complete confusion in terms of trying to search for the physical records. But thanks to the digital records, thanks to technology and the credits being stored in a digital record and a digital repository, just like I think many of you who deal with shares and with the physical instrument and the dematerialized format of that, the dematerialization of your academic credits allow for its storage and retrieval even after 6 years and 5 years, anywhere, anytime, anywhere in the world, not just over here at all. So the period that we are saying of not exceeding 7 years is to prevent an infinite period of exiting and rejoining. And it will be different for different students. Someone does Let us say 22-23 it is launched. I do 22-23 my first year. I do 23-24 my second year. And I also do my third year 23-24. But I want to come back to my fourth year. So I have the bachelor's, but within that 7-year period, I can come back to join and complete my fourth year of the bachelor's. Should I leave at second year and I want to rejoin, I have that 7-year window depending on the year of my exit, not common to all the students who are joining the first year, because then it is again not flexible. So we are saying subsequently, where the norms for sufficiency of total number of credits as specified in the equivalence of it, the student shall be eligible for award. What do I mean by this? Let us say for an assumption, and I'm not too sure because the NHEQF is still not finalized. Let us say 196 credits is, or 200 credits for the sake of round figure, is for 4 years. And the first year is therefore 50 credits. It is a hypothetical example, please, not something that is already firmed up. Let us say it's 50 credits. That 50 credits has to be completed by the student to get that first year certificate. So if that student has taken up courses amounting to 50 credits, registered for them, but let us say did not appear for the examination of one of those courses, but says that my first year is over, the person has completed a course but has not completed the minimum requirement of submitting an assignment or taking an internal exam or sitting for the final examination, which is an external examination. Such a student cannot get the award of that certificate. So that is what we mean by fulfilling the norms of sufficiency of the total number of credits. Then only that student becomes eligible for an award. The next clause, once used or redeemed, credits cannot be, that are earned by the student cannot be reused. Assume I joined the University of Calicut and I completed 50 credits of courses across 6 areas: economics, let's say Arabic, English, vocational 1 subject, agriculture, and let us assume physics, 6 subjects. Then I decide from University of Calicut to go to Kannur University and join the second year there. And when I join over there, whatever credits I earned from the University of Calicut, I have redeemed over there in the University of Kannur. And in my third year, I decide that I would go and complete it in MG University or JNU or DU. I cannot then claim that all those credits which I have already redeemed from the first University of Calicut can be transferred again for a second time there, because you already redeemed it in Kannur University. So once redeemed, you have redeemed that credits and you cannot claim the benefit of that course except in a continuation that this was already redeemed and I've completed that minimum requirement and now I'm joining my third year. So all that this clause tries to say is students should not misuse this by joining multiple universities, and because it is a digital storage, it can easily be caught. If a student is trying, let us say, joins Kannur University and joins JNU, the database will show that no, the student has redeemed from University of Calicut to join in Kannur and therefore cannot redeem that again under JNU or Jamia or any other place. So the technology will store that, and that database, because it is once there, cannot be redeemed multiple times, even if a student is smart enough or wants to circumvent the system and misuse the digital bank of credit or academic bank of credit. We are also subsequently saying that HEIs shall be encouraged by the academic bank of credits to apportion, that is a flexibility that you are getting as an institution. You can lay down which are the core courses, which are the main electives, which are the open electives, which are the skill enhancement electives or the ability enhancement electives. Just for the sake of an example, if you Google the restructured undergraduate program, you may get a few examples, particularly the one that DU is experimenting with. I'm not saying that DU is already doing it, but you will see the structure of which is core elective, open elective, skill enhancement electives, ability enhancement electives. So as a higher education institution, while allowing for flexibility in choice of courses, you can still stipulate certain courses as core to that particular discipline, which has to be completed, so that you are saying that the student is going to major in that particular discipline. Then, of course, with terms of the duration, this is a very important caveat, that one which is like a bullet under serial number 10. Suppose we are saying, because there is this criticism that is coming, that you are not giving a flexibility in the reduction in the time duration. So here we are putting a clause that we will allow relaxation of maximum 1 semester of maybe 6 months or so, provided that the duration of that program that we are trying to pursue is of 2 years or more. So all that it is trying to say is that once a student is pursuing qualifications under the ABC facility and has earned the stipulated number of credits, let us say the 200 credits, but I did the 200 credits in such a way that I did 50 credits in my first year and I did 70 credits in my second year, not 50 credits. Then when I come to my fourth year, I can get a relaxation of 6 months reduction. So a student is allowed to take more than 50 credits with a hypothetical example of 200 credits for 4 years, and the student takes more than the minimum requirement of 50 credits, then that duration can get a reduction of maximum just 6 months. But suppose, that is I said in the fourth year. But suppose I am trying to say that I will do 70 credits in first year and then claim that I should get reduction in the duration in my second year. That cannot be allowed, because we are saying at least 2 years of study should have been completed. So we don't want the students to misuse that flexibility in the duration of 6 months relaxation by allowing them to get that reduction only if they have done 1 year of study. We are also saying that the course fee can be determined on the basis of the number of credits, and every higher education institution which is onboarding to the ABC will have to pay something like a registration fee. Now, this is the part relating to the monitoring and quality assurance. The IQAC cells, I think, are here. We are in the clause 3 saying that the quality assurance of ABC implementation shall be developed by the IQAC. If they don't want the IQAC, then some other appropriate structured mechanism as determined by the HEIs. Why I said this bullet at most important is that all the IQAC cells of higher education institutions must be able to understand the ABC, the multiple entry and exit, as well as the NHEQF whenever it comes through very, very minutely, because you are going to be the capacity building body for ensuring that all faculty within that institution understands it, which comes to the bullet 2, that the registered HEIs will offer teachers or staff training, mentoring, academic and other measures for improving it, so that we are actually having a capacity building to understand this new architecture of the academic bank of credits. Of course, the point goes without saying that ABC along with the multiple entry and exit will have to be monitored and operationalized by all the HEIs deciding to onboard on the academic bank of credits. First, for the implementation of it. Second, for the capacity building of it. Third, that they will, once having identified that it is going to be the IQAC or any other body, continuously engage with the IQAC in ensuring that all the requirements of public display are being put up and people can access it in a transparent manner. And that is why we are saying that we will upload all this information which is necessary for monitoring and ensuring the support on the website. And finally, that we will also have a mechanism for grievance redressal, because you are likely to have a number of students So when we actually have the ABC, the current requirement of migration and other things, which is again a very arduous task, will not be anymore required. But while migration and getting a transfer certificate and all those procedural requirements which are today invalid or in necessary for moving from one institution is not there, you will have various other reasons for grievance redressal, which may be a matter of concern, and therefore that will also have to be equally essential to be put in place. So the IQAC will have 2 or 3 important functions. One, they will be able to tell their institution on what is required for actually operationalizing the ABC onboarding. Will also use train the teachers to tell the students that they should open an academic bank account and how that will operate in terms of depositing of credits, redemption of credits, or before redemption, the accumulation of credits, and then the redemption of it, and how you can keep on carrying this forward to other institutions for the mobility that you are having, and that the flexibility allows you to take up courses in what combination, and the freedom that you have to choose the combination. Capacity building not only of the students but also of the faculty, so that they are constantly told about how this is evolving and what are the operational problems that you have, and each one of you being able to access and see how the academic bank of credit is functioning, and most importantly display public disclosure that it is a very transparent system. Because it is digital, the transparency becomes easier. And finally, a grievance redressal mechanism. So this last slide is largely something for the IQAC cells or any other body that the institution, but I don't see any other cell because you already have a mechanism in place. And I think it's easier for the IQAC, which already takes care of capacity building and webinars and workshops and things like that, to actually start working on the ABC also. So I have basically tried in this 20 slides to give you a feel of the philosophy and the logic and the rationale, the reason why it is significant, what is NEP in a snapshot, the structure of school education and its interconnectedness to higher education, and how is the undergraduate program, going on to talk about what liberal arts education is all about, and further on in terms of the 3 instrumentalities, which is the game changer in the coming times, and where 2 have been notified, 1 is in the works. Then why the ABC is so important in this new liberal arts education undergraduate program, and what are the features, what is the notifications of the UGC and the letters, how does it look like, have a look at the site, how does it operate, again a screenshot, and the institutions onboarded at the moment, and then further on into understanding the eligibility, and then the implementation, 2 slides, and finally the monitoring and the quality assurance. I think this should give you a snapshot of the ABC. All that I am trying to sort of say is that NEP 2020 is not preparing job-ready students of today. It is preparing future-ready graduates. What do we mean by that? We have heard the phrase, we do not know what the jobs of tomorrow look like, because you have disruptive technologies challenging human intelligence and taking over the jobs that human beings have been doing. In such a scenario, our students should have modicum knowledge on multiple disciplines, multiple competencies and skills, and the knowledge and the capabilities along with the 21st century skills to prepare them for unknown jobs, reinvent themselves, because the luxury that you and I have of being in similar jobs over a period of time is no longer a luxury that our youngsters have. Even if they take up teaching as a profession, the way in which we will use hybrid tools of pedagogy, very innovative ways of assessment, not rote testing and memory testing, these would require even faculty to keep upgrading themselves. And that is why the liberal arts education, which in the draft NEP we wrote the word liberal arts education, but for greater acceptability in NEP 2020 we used the word integrated, flexible, multidisciplinary, holistic undergraduate education of 3/4 years, leading to concomitant changes in master's and PhD programs, has been the way forward for learning in the 21st century, where learning is multidimensional, cognitive, skill-oriented, sustainable, and peace-oriented, as well as optimizing learning the treasure within, which is there within each and every child, whatever color, whatever race, whatever disability. The system should be able to bring out that potential, and therefore the treasure is within each one of us. That is what the 21st century learning is all about. To make that possible, we have the NHEQF, the ABC, and the multiple entry and exit. I think I have just tried to share with you the knowledge that I have also been a part of and blessed to be a part of, and I am open to questions and interaction. Thank you very much for this patient hearing.
Madam, myself, Dr. Johnson Baby from Christian College, Chenganur. So, Madam, thank you for the wonderful in-depth presentation. So, I just have one or two doubts. Now, the most of things, Madam, you have mentioned is definitely is going to be working out good for the students. And, but what about the institutions? You told that institutions which are not getting good grades in the accreditation process will be wiped out. So this is definitely going to be many colleges, especially those colleges which are rural and which have other background settings, they are definitely going to suffer. And one more thing is, what about the medium of instructions? If you go to North India, even at degree level or PG level, the things are taught in Hindi, whereas a student who has learned things in South India, so here he has learned a lot of things in English. So language will create a lot of problem. And secondly, what about, we have different streams. We have private, we have aided, we have autonomous. And in Kerala, even each and every post is based on the number of workload. The head count is very important. So if the students opt for other colleges, definitely we are going to lose the students. And that is will affect the strength and ultimately the workload. So is there any measures to check these things?
Thank you for those concerns. Let me try and take up the last one first, where you're talking in terms of the head count being very important. So when you say that a student joins, let us say, your college in Chenganur, and we are saying the admission is in your college, but the student is doing courses from other institutions, you are not losing that student. You are continuing to hold that student as long as the student is doing credits from other institutions. You are not losing that student. We are only saying that 50% credits must be taken from your college, because as a college under in Chenganur, maybe you are affiliated to MG University, and MG University is the one giving the certificate, not the Chenganur college. Am I right?
Right.
Yeah. So the college head count is not getting affected. Now assume that the student is leaving MG University and joining Kerala University or JNU or any other college. Yes, that part does come into the play, but whenever we notify it, and if you remember in the slide, I said we will amend the ordinances of the institution. Each university has its ordinances, and these statutes or ordinances will be amended to implement the ABC. These concerns, which are functional concerns, can be taken into account when making those amendments, so that the workload which is currently being seen in terms of the number of hours, we will try to bring in caveats or maybe, clauses of exceptions where that should not be a factor in terms of affecting the number of people who are getting appointed. That's point number one. The second point is your first question, that over a period of time, many institutions which are of very low quality will perish. Now, merely because a college is in a rural area, let us not assume that such a college is bound to be of low quality. What the ABC is trying to incentivize, and which I think all of us should be able to appreciate, is that good quality education is critical to have students who get the right kind of employment suited to their education qualification. So Kerala Public Service Commission member in one of the webinars said that when the KPSC advertised for an assistant post in some PSU under it, 80% of the applicants for the assistant post, it's a clerical post, were engineers. Is that what we produce our engineers for? To become clerks in some organization? Let us be realistic that quality is a critical factor of the survival of an institution. Just because one degree is given and that person is having that, you cannot go on excusing institutions for not doing anything for their academic excellence. So when we say that they will perish, it is not going to happen tomorrow. By the time we implement this and we give that breathing time to institutions, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, can we not expect institutions within this long rope that we are giving to acquire certain minimum benchmarks? That is already being said in the policy, that the entire move from affiliated to becoming degree granting autonomous colleges is a 15-year window, and only after that we are looking at it. Isn't 15 years a substantially long period for an institution which may be not getting a NAAC A-grade accreditation to work towards getting an A-grade accreditation? And if even after that, then we should ask ourselves the question, should we allow mediocrity to survive in that manner? This is what I will just leave and comment on that. The third point is your point in terms of the language. Now, for the policy, we have encouraged multilingualism. And for undergraduate education, we have said that we will allow bilingual undergraduate programs and that we can teach undergraduate programs in regional languages. Let me also clarify to you, undergraduate programs across the country today, we give them the facility to write an examination in Hindi, but we don't teach in Hindi language. We are offering it in English medium only. So when we say that we will allow multilingualism, bilingual teaching, and AICTE this time in its entrance examinations have allowed regional languages. So you can have engineering being taught today in Malayalam, in Tamil Nadu, in Tamil, in Orissa, it can be in Odia, in Bengali. But that does not mean that the student does not understand English. But by allowing them to offer it, you are not necessarily restricting that possibility, because you are saying that they will still know a modicum of certain language, and we will allow for bilingual options, so that concern that you have can also be equally addressed. But currently, except for Tamil Nadu, which does not allow Hindi, rest of India allows for English as the medium of instruction and gives the facility to write the examination in 2 languages of English or Hindi. But now we will allow them to even write it in Malayalam, or even in Tamil, or even in Telugu, or even in Gujarati, or in Marathi. So we are moving towards the kind of pluralistic linguistic heritage that we have, to allow students to write in the language that they are most comfortable. But at the same time, English will still continue to be there as one of the languages as a part of the bilingual instruction. It is difficult, no doubt. I can understand that principle, that you are having those, because we are used to a certain way in which it has been conducted. But we need to be amenable to the kind of changes that are necessary. No Chinese will teach their children in English. No Japanese will teach them in English. No Korean will teach them in English. We do it because we had a colonial hangover, but we have our own languages. And while we should teach them in English, we should also allow them to learn in their own languages. And that should not be a reason that comes in the way of the student mobility. It is only for us because we feel that this will add to our workload. And as I said, actually, once you start doing it, you will realize that, see, I can speak Malayalam, but if you ask me to give this presentation to you in Malayalam, I will not have the confidence. But once you say that, no, you are also required to do it, and most of us will be able to do it either along with us in Hindi or in Marathi or in Bengali or in Malayalam, we will be also upgrading ourselves. As I said, teachers also will have to reinvent themselves into these new roles. So I may not have really given you what answers you may have really looked for, but I am sure that we as faculty, if we start unlearning and relearning, which is what is the idea of lifelong learning, we will also flow with the tide of the changes that are envisaged.
Thank you, Dr. Shakila ma'am, for this enlightening presentation and also for showing patience to spend time for interaction. So we have reached the end of the webinar. Let me call upon Dr. Saidalavi, General Secretary of the Principals Council, to propose the vote of thanks.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm audible.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Respected President Dr. Ebiju, Dr. Madam Shakila Shamsu, the Speaker, Dr. Lizzie Matthew, the Treasurer, and all the respected participants of this webinar. Now, I am directly entering to my duty of proposing vote of thanks. So, on behalf of the Kerala Principals Council and all the participants here, I extend sincere thanks and gratitude to our respected speaker, Dr. Shakila Shamsu, for her wonderful and informative presentation on understanding flexibility and multidisciplinary higher education through the academic ABC. She has touched all parts of NEP and ABC in length and breadth in her presentation. This is the second time respected Madam is attending our program organized by the Principals Council. Earlier, she had delivered a lecture for us on national education policy when it was materialized. Being the secretary of committee to prepare draft national education policy and former officer on special duty of NEP 2020, she is the suitable person to speak on this topic. So once again, on behalf of all the participants here, I extend sincere thanks and gratitude to dear Madam for sparing your valuable time with us. Thank you very much. I take this opportunity to thank our Honorable President Dr. Ebiju, who delivered welcome speech and took all pains to organize this webinar successfully. On behalf of the Council, I extend sincere thanks to all participants of this webinar, including Dr. Lizzie Matthew, our Treasurer, other office bearers, including Vice Presidents and Joint Secretaries, members of the Executive Committee, former principals, former office bearers, IQAC coordinators, and all the faculty members from various colleges of the state. Finally, I express deep sense of gratitude to the faculties of MES Asmabi College for making this webinar a grand success. So, once again, I thank all the members who attended this webinar. So, I think this is the time for concluding our webinar. Vijay sir, can we conclude?
Yeah, please.
Thank you very much. And
thank you, Shakila.
I expected more interaction. Otherwise, I would have gone on a little longer. I normally keep about 20 minutes for interaction, but I suppose you all didn't have doubts or I've confused you even further. But nevertheless, let's hope that we all move towards these new reforms. Stay safe. Thank you very much for your kind words. And it was a pleasure. And let me also thank Dr. Zakaria, who actually made it possible for me to be a part of this webinar. And it was he who had approached me on your behalf. Thank you very much. Do stay
Thank you,
safe.
ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Shakila ma'am. Thank you, Sakari
Madam,
sir. Thank you.
the principals are most of the principals are in admission. UJ admission is going on, especially in Calicut University. So they are busy with admission process. So that I think most of them are not ready to ask questions. Sorry for that.
An issue at all. Always it's an
Okay.
interaction that is more important, but I fully appreciate the administrative responsibilities that come along with admission period. Thank you very much. Do stay safe
Okay.
and
Okay.
stay blessed.